LightCasting. Hi, sweet souls. Welcome to I'm Awake, Now What? A podcast investigating the intersectionality of spirituality, healing, and personal development. I'm your host, Krista Xiomara. Rack up some good karma by leaving a 5-star rating and write a review if you're enjoying the show, and tell your friends about it. This week I am joined by psychotherapist and spiritual psychologist Chausey LeeBronJameson. Chausey opens up with an early childhood experience growing up in an atheist household and finding God as a young girl. Chausey walks us through her young adulthood as an actress and looking inside herself to discover that her soul desired to do deeper, more fulfilling work in psychology. Chausey is also the founder of the 33-Day Process, a program built around creating an intuitive and holistic relationship with your body to initiate inner healing. Hi, Chausey. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Krista. I'm just so excited to talk with you tonight.
My first question for every guest is if they can give us a quick intro about who they are and what they do, and all things Chausey.
You're really sweet to ask. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation to be on your show. I'm so grateful. My name is Chausey LeeBronJameson, and I am a psychotherapist. I practice spiritual psychology, and I'm also a life coach. I have authored a course called the 33-Day Process, Loving Your Beautiful and Miraculous Body, and I am a mommy to a 13-year-old son and a wife, and we live in Connecticut. How about that for a start?
Beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for that intro. I love it. The next question, I always like to really understand the arc of my guest's spiritual story. Since this is a spiritually based podcast, if you can walk us through like your early childhood experience and then how you evolved, what you do or do not believe and what you do or do not practice present day. If you could walk us through that story.
Well, we're just jumping right in there, girl, aren't we? We are just going right to the meat of it all. Okay, that's a great question. I love that. Well, I was actually brought up as, drumroll, an atheist.
Dun, 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 dun.
I know, right? Is that crazy? I was brought up in Houston, Texas, and I was a total daddy's girl, although I adored my mama too. She rarely talked about God. And my father really was an atheist and taught me from, I don't know, somewhere in elementary school. When you die, you die. That's it. It's black. Everything goes to black. That's it. So enjoy your life. And I just kind of accepted that as truth. And I do have one little funny story. The only time I went to church in elementary school, I went with my mom and a best girlfriend and her mom, and we went to their Baptist church. And the minister said, okay, I would like anybody who's new to please raise your hand and introduce yourself. Well, my hand just shot up like a skyrocket. And yeah, I know. And my mom, I remember looking over at her, and she was just kind of thinking in the pew with her head buried in her hand like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I get to see that. And all of a sudden he began to walk over, and there were other people in our pew as well. And he had a microphone, and he just went down the line, and he said, so what faith are you? And someone said, Catholic. And what faith are you? And the next person said, Baptist. And what faith are you? And the person said, Episcopalian. And then he got to me, and I just remember panicking like, oh my God, I can't find the words. What am I? What am I? I really was searching my soul for what I was, and what I finally grabbed from the pit of I don't know where deep inside of me, and I just spit out Aquarius. And it echoed very loud, and I had a very deep voice, and, in elementary school, Aquarius, Aquarius, Aquarius. And I felt so proud, and I remember looking down at my mom, kind of over there because she was slumped down. She just kind of looked a little proud, a little embarrassed, but that was really my experience in church growing up. That was it until I would say high school, Well, actually, I would say 8th grade. I started going to Young Life because that was kind of the thing that was popular to do, where you could go and flirt with boys, and hang out with all your friends. And then that kind of went through high school. And then at the end of my the summer between my sophomore and my junior year, I went to a Christian Young Life camp, and it was at Windy Gap. I don't know where. Maybe it was like South Carolina, maybe. It was beautiful wherever it was. And all I can tell you is that week in camp, I had a conflict that was firing inside of me. It felt like an all-out war with myself and God. It was a war between, will I choose my dad, who I love and respect with everything in my heart, or will I abandon what he taught me for something that I can't even see or know? And it was a battle. It was a dark night of the soul, really. And I was on the side of a mountain, and it was the last night of camp. And there was not a cloud in the sky. And they had us go and just kind of sit by ourselves somewhere on this mountaintop. And I did. I sat there and I looked out at the starry night. And I don't remember if I said it out loud, but as memory recalls, I did. And I said, okay, God, if you want me to believe in you, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to prove it to me, because otherwise I'm not believing. You're going to have to show me a real sign, really kind of in a tantrum way. And about 20 seconds later, there was lightning that came down and thunder, like out of nowhere.
Wow.
And in that moment, my heart was just opened, and I felt the power of God inside of me. And it was the most profound experience. And it was not happening on the mental level. It really just happened on the spiritual level. And it was cute because about 10 seconds later, I heard echoes from different corners of, I don't know where, the darkness outside. I just pressed her sign and I got one. Me too! It was really cute. But that was really my introduction, or I should say my remembering of God and who I am.
Yeah. You got your professional education in Santa Barbara, right?
Actually in Santa Monica.
Oh, Santa Monica. I'm sorry. I always get them confused. It was in spiritual psychology. So what was that like, going through that, having were you feeling like you were like playing catch up with people on the spiritual end of side, or not really?
No, not at all. Actually, what had happened was I was an actress, and I moved to Los Angeles to go to college. I went to California Institute of the Arts to become an actress. And so I was really an actress in Los Angeles, auditioning and, just that whole life. And one day I got a part working with Arsenio Hall on a show called Martial Law. And I remember going to my trailer and looking deep in my eyes and knowing this is just not going to fulfill me for my lifetime to be an actress. This just will not fulfill me. And so I decided to quit acting, and I really embarked on about 6 months of a really spiritual quest of what am I going to do with my life? Because all I ever wanted to do since I was in elementary school was be an actress. And so one day I was in the shower, and again, I had this wild, beautiful experience that came down like a lightning bolt is really how I've described it. And in an instant, I got the intuitive information, I'm going to be a therapist. And I just got a really visual and intuitive experience of exactly what my life would feel like. And I would be a mom, and I would be a therapist and a spiritual teacher. And it was really beautiful. So I went back to college. I was a person who had dropped in and out of colleges, and I went back to school, and I got my BA in a year, and then I did 4 years of a master's program at the University of Santa Monica, where I graduated Student of the Year. Here I was someone who had never done well in school, and I was suddenly graduating with that beautiful honor. So no, I trusted my intuition, and I felt that I was in the right place, and even had dreams at the University of Santa Monica. My soul knew that that's where I would learn, and I learned from masterful teachers like Mary Holmick and Ron Holmick and Joanna Jenkins, just to name a few, and Maria Foley, who was also beautiful. But it was an incredible, beautiful, magical, experiential graduate school experience that really prepared me for the work I do.
Yeah. Wow. That's really fascinating. I think it's really awesome that you listened to those intuitions and that deep wisdom that you had within yourself. I mean, it's not a small thing to look inside a mirror and say, I don't know if this work is going to fulfill me. And it sounds like you were at such a young age. And I feel like a lot of my podcast guests and myself included, it took me a really long time to really realize that my fulfillment lied somewhere else, So I think it's really great that you had that story.
That's really beautiful. And the truth is, I was 29 and I went back to school at 30. And then I ended up graduating with a master's at 35 and had a child at 36. So any of your listeners that are late bloomers, enjoy the journey. It will unfold exactly as it's meant to. And it will make more sense when you look back over the scope of your life.
Yeah, I'm a classic late bloomer. I've just come to embrace it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
So let's get into the actual work that you're doing, because I really want to highlight this because I think it's really interesting. As a spiritual therapist, you've made a focal point of your work helping people get into their body. And like you mentioned in your introduction, you have a course that you teach. And so what can we say to the listeners about this program, about its inception, and how you're helping people reconnect with themselves?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm so grateful to talk about it. So I will tell you, about a year ago, I went through, I wouldn't call it a health crisis, but it was a little bit on that edge. I was really getting sick quite often, and I was tired a lot, and I just was feeling not my full energetic self. And so I went to the doctor because I was just having some funky symptoms, and I got back some blood work that really truly alarmed me because I had never had bad blood work. And suddenly I was in a zone that was a little scary. And so what I know through my work with my clients and my work through the University of Santa Monica is that it takes 33 consecutive days to shift a pattern in consciousness. And I knew I had better start healing my relationship with my body now. And so what I did every single day is I made an appointment with myself, and I sat in my office and I dialogued with different parts of myself. I would dialogue with my stomach or my throat. I would listen to what does my tummy have to tell me? And I would really dialogue it out. And my tummy might say, I'm hurt. Or my throat might say, I'm tired of having to be perfect all the time. You criticize me all the time. I'm scared to speak up. It was just very fascinating when I listened and dialogued with different parts of my body, that it would show me negative patterns that I created in my own consciousness to try to keep myself safe. And what we know about healing is that healing is the application of love to the place inside that hurts.
Yeah.
And so, right? And so I would really dialogue with my throat and say, oh, sweetheart, I am so sorry that I ever made that misinterpretation of reality, that I had to be perfect in order to be loved or to be safe. That's actually not true, sweetheart. You're having a human experience, and human experiences are about learning, not perfection. Your soul is already perfect. And so I would go through different parts of my body and dialogue with them. And I will tell you that by the end of that 32-day process, I got a colonoscopy because I've had a diagnosis in the past of Crohn's. In that colonoscopy, it came back, I think it was on day 31. The doctor said, we can find zero trace of that disease in your body. Like, it looks like you never even had it.
Wow.
And it was so successful. This work, I was eating in ways that were more mindful. I suddenly was in relationship and in partnership with my body, where before I had been in againstness, we were like enemies in some way. And I befriended with a lot of compassion those parts of myself that I had made an enemy in the past. And so it was really beautiful. And I was eating in ways that were honoring my digestive system, and they were bringing me vibrance as opposed to draining me. And I just found a lot of energy, and I got my blood work back, and it was beautiful and wonderful, and I enjoyed it. So cut to, I don't know, it was a week before Christmas, and my intuition out of nowhere just told me, make a post on Facebook and see if there's anybody out there that needs support in healing their relationship with their body. And so I did that, and I turned to my husband, Sam, and I said, all right, if we get 20 people that are interested, it would have to be like 20, but if not, then we just won't do it. Well, I mean, by that next day, we had at least 80 people. And so here it was. I told everybody we'd start it January 1st. So we really started this course January 2nd. And we did it for 33 consecutive days. And we filmed it, and it was so intuitive. And it is a really beautiful, if I don't say so myself, course that we co-created with Spirit, and our students have had really powerful healings, and it was just been a really beautiful journey. Some of the things that it's not just about the body, it's about really taking care of your energetic body, right? Like psychic boundaries, with taking care of your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual self.
The one thing I wanted to maybe talk about, or see if we can maybe, I think you were getting there right now, but like the part of, or the other parts, the moving parts of when you think, like right now when you were even talking about it, I was thinking about myself, and I've gained a lot of weight in the last couple of years, and some of it has been because of depression and things that I've been going through. And I've been trying to get back into my body, because it's strange living just in, the upper, above the neck, kind of area. So when you're doing this type of work, there's probably a lot of things that people have to address apart from just making friends with their body, right? What are the other psychological implications?
That's a beautiful question. And thank you for sharing with me your process. So, I guess like if we were to work with you, Krista, maybe like what we would say is we just would create a really loving space to give weight a voice. That's where we'd probably start. So you would probably like really listen with a lot of love. Wait, what do you have to tell me? And Wait might say, I just feel so heavy. I feel like I'm just not, I don't know what your weight would say, but mine might have said something like, I just feel heavy. I'm just feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling like I don't want to be seen. I feel like it's not safe to be seen. If I'm seen, I could be scrutinized or laughed at, or I might do something where I could be ridiculed or get in trouble. So we just really kind of listen, like, okay, I hear you. We'd listen with love about what's going on under the surface. And then, there's several different modalities that I really teach throughout the course. And some of it is about connecting, let's say, with an inner child, getting in touch with maybe where did you first feel ridiculed, or where were you first scrutinized, and writing that feeling all the way back in time, and doing some healing of memory work, and rewriting a memory the way that you wished it would have turned out, updating any old misinterpretations of reality. For example, if I'm seeing it's not safe, or I don't know how to protect myself, or boundaries are rude or mean or any of those old irrational beliefs, and then updating them, right? So you would say, I can always protect myself with boundaries. Boundaries are really loving. I can tune in with myself and I can say yes for when something feels honoring, and I can say no if it doesn't feel like it honors my highest good. I can trust myself to care for myself. It is easy for me to have boundaries in this world.
I love all of those I love all those affirmations.
Oh, great. And then, you could do some self-forgiveness. So you would say, I forgive myself for ever judging myself as unable to protect myself.
Yeah, that's definitely been at the forefront of my mind. Like even just sitting with the extra weight and apologizing to my body for not taking such good care of it and forgiving myself for not doing that.
Yeah, and forgiving yourself, like I forgive myself for judging myself as wrong.
Right.
For putting on extra weight.
Right.
I forgive myself for judging the ways that I knew how to cope as wrong.
Right.
The truth about me is I'm learning, and I'm learning how to honor myself, and I'm learning how to take care of myself with boundaries, and I'm learning how to not overwhelm myself. Part of the course we really talk about learning about overwhelm and how, so many times, one of my old triggers was over responsibility. When I would take over responsibility for someone else, I would get drained. So one of the things, we learn how to do in the course is we learn how to scan our body and see what part wants to talk to us. We do where we look at our battery, much like the phone, you go, what's my battery at today? How charged am I? Do I have enough energy to do this? And really scanning your calendar and setting up your calendar in a way that you have extra cushion so that you're not draining your battery. So, for example, I know I'm going to talk to you tonight. I didn't pack in clients up until 10 minutes before we started. I put some cushion time in there so I could do a little prayer and meditation and be ready and joyful in my center when we spoke. So part of self-care is really learning how to care for your internal battery. And again, it's self-care on the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual level.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks. I do want to add in there that one of the things I discovered from doing this body work, and this might sound so obvious to some people, but I'm a person that really neglected my body. And so the thing that surprised the most was when I really listened to my body. What I discovered was it was like a roadmap, and it was a roadmap of my curriculum. And it was a roadmap of where I still needed to heal and where I needed to learn. And I believe what happens in our childhood really does feed our curriculum for our life.
Yeah.
And sometimes what is seated in our bodies can come forward when we're doing body work. So that was a discovery, seeing that my body was like a sacred roadmap of learning. And what I really was surprised by was that the more in tune I got with my body, the more I found God living deep inside of me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I don't have anything to add to that.
Well, yeah, right? I mean,
that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. When you work with the body piece, we talked in our preliminary call that there is some shadow work that has to go on and kind of in parallel. And I mentioned to you, I don't know, I've had a bunch of therapists on here, but I don't know if we've ever actually defined shadow work. And then, so I wondered if we could define shadow work and then how we can invite our shadow parts to help us along our growth.
Oh, I love the way you just form a question. It's just so delightful. You come from such a place of curiosity that it makes it really fun to answer. Okay, so shadow work. Our shadow side usually is anything that's not light, right? We think of lightness. We think, oh, there's joy and there's beauty and peace and those kinds of light-filled qualities. And we also have our shadow qualities, which can be like anger, jealousy, grief, despair, even maybe selfishness, right? Those kinds of qualities. And what I find is oftentimes when we judge those qualities, we are missing a really beautiful spiritual opportunity. So, for example, let's just take jealousy, right? A lot of us go, oh my God, that's kind of the worst thing you can be is jealous. Oh, right? Oh, God. Well, the truth is, if we can really pay attention to that little ting of jealousy when it comes forward, a lot of times the jealousy is really offering us inspiration about what we want, what we haven't had. If we listen to it, it might say, I really want that thing. Why aren't you helping me go for that thing? Why aren't you supporting me in taking those next steps so that I can have that too? If we deny our jealousy, no, I'm not. No, if we make it wrong that we have our shadow feelings, then we miss part of the illuminated path that we're being guided on. And if we deny our shadow feelings, what often happens, let's say with anger, if we deny, I'm not angry. You've ever been around someone and they say they're not angry and they're seething and you can feel it, they could knock you over with it. Well, sometimes, if we're not responsible with our shadow material, then people around us are kind of getting hit by it. And it's, it can be destructive to our relationship. So we want to make sure that we're impeccable with being responsible with our own emotional care and using the shadow material to really support us in our growth, our healing, and manifesting our dreams.
Yeah, I love all of that. And my follow-up question was, with the shadow work, if you're deep in it and you're really trying to connect with those parts that you've sort of alienated, how crucial is self-forgiveness in this process? And what can we tell the audience about doing this for themselves?
Oh, my goodness gracious, right. Self-forgiveness is just the key. It's just a loving balm that just can release the weight that you've carried. So for example, just say you've been jealous of a friend. Let's just say it for an example. So again, nothing is good, bad, right, or wrong. From a spiritual perspective, we don't have the altitude to judge. So we can forgive ourselves for the judgment. So it's really a healing balm that says, I've learned this lesson and I forgive myself for judging my jealousy as wrong. I forgive myself for judging myself as a bad friend. I forgive myself for judging myself as a bad girlfriend or wife because I felt jealous. The truth about me is I just wanted to keep something that felt safe or secure. Or the truth about me is that I wanted to shine too. The truth about me is that I can shine. So the key in forgiveness work is to forgive yourself for the judgment and then really affirm the truth about you. Affirm it. I'm a divine soul right in the middle of a human experience.
And I'm not going to get it right every time.
No, and I'm not supposed to. My soul's perfect. I don't have to be. I'm having a human experience, and those are about learning.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of that. You said something earlier back there about protecting ourselves energetically, spiritually, emotionally. And as we're all very well aware, we're in the midst of a pandemic right now. And I see everywhere on social media that stuff is coming up for everybody because we're in solitude and we're spending a lot more alone time. And, we're kind of a culture built on distraction. So we're kind of having to face things now. What do you say to the people who need to create compassionate space for themselves to face their fears or whatever's coming up for them?
I would just to set an intention. My intention is to create a compassionate space for the fear I have. To be honest with you, we live in Connecticut, in Fairfield County, and we're about an hour outside of New York City. And I will tell you that when all this started happening, I got an intuitive sense it was going to be really big. Fear started gripping me. And I did not create time to listen to it. I just had an idea of how I was going to be. I was going to help people through this, and I was going to eat organic fruit, and I was going to do yoga, and I was just not going to be touched by this thing. And what ended up happening, truth be known, was I was getting headaches. I got a weird infection. And early on, I had to get some antibiotics. I got insomnia. I got ulcers in my throat. And finally, my lower back went out. All of this within about a week. And I got in a hot bath one day. My husband had to help me in because I was in excruciating pain. And in a flash, I just realized I was not trusting spirit. I was not trusting the universe. I was in terror, and I had not made room for that. And I realized that this experience is not about me being untouched by these events, that this is about me opening and allowing. And it can be a bit of the dark night of the soul, much like that week when I was at that Christian camp on the side of a mountain. Sometimes we have those dark nights of the soul. And I'll tell you, every time I have met a dark night of the soul and I've gone to the mat with my fear and my ego, and if I'm authentically asking spirit to come in, what I find is that I am met with grace and an opening and a release. And it feels like a release of control and a deepening of trust, a deepening of trust, and I'm fortified in faith, and then I'm empowered. And ever since I had that night in that hot bath, I have felt energized, I have felt empowered, I have felt creative, and I'm feeling on track with and aligned with my highest self. So again, I say meet that dark night of the soul. Ask for support if you need it. Really listen inwardly for guidance on how to get the support you might need if you do need additional support, like a therapist or a coach or even a friend. We are not in this alone. And I just would encourage you to listen to your heart and to trust yourself. Let it guide you.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And I know that it's one of those things too that it's so easy for us to hide from the truth for long periods of time. And then I really do. I mean, for me, for sure, I'll have I've had similar, not exactly like you, but if I've been running from something, my body starts to give out before my mind catches up with what I'm trying to hide from.
Isn't that funny?
It is it's really funny, but also I think it's kind of also very intelligent, right? Because it's like sometimes I just think there's a gatekeeper in our subconscious knows when we're ready to face it, and it can't be a moment sooner, right?
That's so beautiful. I love those gatekeeper moments that keep you. It's almost like a gatekeeper too said, okay, can you pass this fear?
Right.
And if you can release the fear and you can move into trust and you can release this false sense of control, you elevate up to the next level.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it is a bit of grace from the gatekeeper or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I sense it. Yeah.
Right. And that, what I realized is that any dark night of the soul, the result of that can be a rebirth. And what I really realized is that a rebirth does not happen with organic food and yoga. It really happens when we are meeting our fears and those scary places. And if we can bring light and compassion and meet ourselves with love, then usually that's where healing can be let in.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I did want to ask just one final question in the vein of the pandemic situation. There's lots of families and couples who are confined in close quarters, and this can bring up like old stuff, old patterns, old baggage. And you do a lot of work with couples therapy and individuals as well. But what can you say for people who are just trying to navigate this moment together?
Oh my gosh, I'm loving you ask this question. Heck yeah, girl. Let's go for this. Yes, because it is an ideal time to go for really healing issues with your spouse if that's what's up. And I will tell you, I have many couples right now who are working through some stuff, right? So what I would suggest to any of your listeners who are finding themselves in any kind of partnership that is intense right now or loud, those underneath the surface issues that are really rising up and getting your attention, I would encourage you guys to just set aside about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and one of you speak for about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, speak from your heart, and have your partner just listen. And you can tell your partner, hey, can you just be my best friend here? Like when we first met, you can coach them. You can go, can you just hear me with compassion without moving into any kind of defense or taking things personally? Can you really, all I want you to do is just put yourself in my shoes and be my best friend and hear me. And if they can do that and you can speak from your heart, then that's where healing happens. And then, then you can shift and then you can listen to your partner just as their best friend. You can really listen. Oh, I hear that when I do that, it really brings up such and such. It reminds you of your mom. Oh my gosh, I understand that. Yes. You don't go into, yeah, but that's not how I say it. Yeah, but that's not what I meant. You resist any urge to defend. And a lot of times it's easy if you can look at your partner, and sometimes you might get a glimpse of them when they were 8 or 10 or 12. A lot of times our issues that come forward in our partnerships are really unresolved issues from childhood. So if when you're listening to your partner with your ears of your heart, you can also hold a space for their inner child, it'll really help you shift into a place of compassion. Again, heart-centered listening is key when we really hear our partner on a really deep, compassionate level. That can be healing in and of itself, not fixing each other. And you might even light a candle and go, we're going to light a candle. And you could even set like a little, a little bell or something that goes off after a minute or two of you sharing, and the bell goes off. And then just have them perception check. What did you hear? And they can say, I heard such and such. Did I get that right? Well, no, you actually missed this part. This was the really important part I wanted you to understand. Oh, okay, you wanted me to understand blah, blah, blah. The blah, blah, blah means blah. Is that what you mean? Yes, you got it. That would be like one full, complete cycle of communication. Once you feel really heard by your partner, then you would shift the focus and it would be their turn to share from their heart.
Yeah, I think it's almost like we were never taught really well how to listen. I mean, I know that it's something I've struggled with too. And the way I grew up in my family unit, you partially listened, but you made assumptions and then you created false stories out of your deductions, but you didn't really hear the person. So I've been unlearning that like most of my adult life. And I have to check a lot, honestly, in relationship and friendship for understanding when people are talking to me, because I can hear something one way and I interpret it completely different in my mind. It's the way somebody's saying it. So I think that's really great advice to just allow people to check for understanding and listen to each other. I feel like there's nothing more beautiful than being seen by your person. I mean, and especially at this time.
Yes. And I want to say too, that if you are in a place where you can't get to a therapist, or if you have a friend talk to you and you don't know what to do, there's something that I learned. It was the weekend before it was my 4th year, the weekend before we started seeing clients. And we showed up in the classroom, and on the whiteboard, it had this quote, and it has stayed with me in the deepest crevices of my heart. And I'll tell it to you now. And it is, love is the ultimate competency. Love is the ultimate competency. If you can just hear with the ears of love, that's enough. That's more than enough. Really understanding with love. And if you can shift into that place, that place of vulnerability with your partner. The other thing I might suggest is, sometimes people want to blame each other. You do this and it makes me feel that way. I would just use I statements,
Right.
Just use I statements. I notice I'm feeling not safe, or I really would like to feel your presence, or I'm just missing you, or I'm feeling disconnected and I miss you. If you can move to a place of vulnerability and not come from a place of anger or rage. It's another thing I teach my clients in couples is to really take your anger temperature. And I would say a 10 would be like a white hot rage, and a 1 is just barely angry, right? So anything over a 3, and I really say that's not the time to have the conversation. If you're like at a 4, go take a jog around the block, or call a friend, or write it out and journal it. Wait till you're in a place of more neutrality and you can speak. Because if your partner is hearing you through the rage, they're usually in defense and protecting themselves from rage, and they're not able to actually hear you as clearly as you'd like. And so, again, if you're unconsciously acting from that shadow part and you haven't responsibly handled your own anger, however deep you go in with your partner, however deep that hole is, you guys are going to have to dig your way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's best not to go too far down that rabbit hole. Anything over a 3 or 4, gets your heart rate back lowered and get to a place of neutrality before you can really speak about it. And you might want to say to your partner, you know what, I just need an hour. Let's talk about this in an hour. Or let's come back to this in a few hours. I want to talk and resolve this with you. I just can feel myself feeling heated, and I don't want to say anything that will hurt our relationship.
Yeah. I love all of that. I know it'll help some people that are listening and going through this pandemic with their partners. And I think everyone's getting a little on edge and needs a little more space than they normally do. So
Heck yeah.
I know it'll help. Do you have any additional advice or words of wisdom or anything else that's coming up for you that you want to share with the audience?
Oh, I love that question. Let me tune in really quick. Well, trust yourself. If there's one piece of information that I would love to bestow upon your listeners, it would be, the truth in the deepest place in your heart. And if you create stillness, if you really quiet yourself and sit in that place of stillness, the answers will come. They'll come, and you can always trust yourself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm mindful of the time too. So we're going to wrap it up. And the second to last question I always ask is, where can anyone find you on social media?
Oh, I love that, because I love to play on social media, and I'm a writer as well. So I often write about people's processes and things like this. So not my clients' processes, but just how to process anger or jealousy, things like that. So if you'd like to find me on social media, you can go to Facebook, and I am at Chausey LeeBronJameson, or on Instagram, Chausey LeeBronJameson. And if you're interested in looking into the course and seeing if that's something you might want to do, you can go to 33dayprocess.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll put all of your handles and your 33-day website in the show notes so that everyone can find you easily. And I do always love to end my podcast in gratitude and on a high note. So I like to always ask my guests, what 3 things are they grateful for in this moment?
Oh, Krista, I'm really grateful for you. I'm really grateful for you for providing this platform, that you wanted to listen to any guidance that I could offer your listeners. I feel very honored by this opportunity. So I'm grateful for you. And I'm grateful for my little cat, who is just asleep in front of me right now. She's purring, and her name is Ellie, and she's just got the sweetest little energy. She's just illuminating this room with peace right now. It's really sweet. And I got to do a little bit more. My husband got me these gorgeous roses. I've got 18 full beautiful red roses during a freaking pandemic. I don't even know how that happened, but I'm staring at them on my desk, and they remind me of him and my beautiful son and our home and our health. I have so much to be grateful for. And I'm grateful to your listeners for just giving us their time. I know it's precious.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful.
Oh, well, all of that's really beautiful. And I'm so glad that we were able to connect and that we got to do this interview. And I just think you're such a beautiful light in the world. And I'm excited to share you with the rest of my audience.
How fun. What a blast. It's a thrill. I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much again. And thank you to your listeners.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Xiomara, in alignment with LightCasting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.